DNA fingerprinting by Qura Zaback. What is DNA fingerprinting? DNA fingerprinting is a process of taking a piece of DNA of someone and using that unique patterns of the DNA, you can identify an individual. Basically, every individual's fingerprints or DNA has their own unique patterns. By taking that DNA sample in, you can indicate which identity belongs to who. Where is this applied? Well, it's applied in criminal investigations, paternity testing, medical unit, and also agriculture. There's many uses for DNA fingerprinting with many different practices in the world. But DNA fingerprinting can also be known as DNA profiling. DNA fingerprinting is a well-known practice throughout the world being used in different ways to help a lot of people. I'll be explaining the different uses of this practice in the next few slides. Criminal investigations. How it's applied within the criminal investigation unit is using DNA samples found in a crime scene to identify a person's identity. Things found would be hair, skin samples, blood, fingerprints, etc. It also helps with identifying sexual assault cases. Traces of semen can help identify the criminal who committed the act. Anything that has a DNA in the sample would work in helping find out a person's identity. It also helps with kidnapping cases per se. There is a piece of clothing or hair samples left by a kidnapped child that can help find the identity of that child. I think it helps in many ways being because it usually brings justice to those victims that have gotten murdered, sexually assaulted, robbed, kidnapped, etc. It can also identify serial killers like Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, or Ed Gein. Paternity testing. Another use of DNA fingerprinting is paternity testing. It's basically a test to see the DNA match of a child's parents, meaning like if a father wanted to see if his child was 100% biologically his, he would have to get a paternity test. You'd have to have your child's DNA and your own. Then the process would be seeing if your child's DNA matches up with your own. If there was an identical match, then your child is 100% biologically yours. But if there were different, then it would show results of your child not being yours biologically. I think this process helps parents decipher if their kid is theirs biologically. Like, what I mean by that is like adoption cases usually. Medical unit. So how DNA fingerprinting can work within the medical unit is mainly to diagnose any genetic diseases that's usually called genetic testing. How it works is that it can reveal changes in your genes, also called mutations, that could eventually cause illnesses. Can also help with babies, called prenatal testing. Usually can help diagnose newborn babies with Down syndrome or to check their overall health. Carrier testing that helps to see if you have any genetic diseases like Huntington's disease. There's many more uses of DNA fingerprinting within the medical unit, but those are just examples. I think this process helps people because it brings more awareness to people and their own health so they can get help sooner than later, so they can live happily and longer with their friends and family. Agriculture. DNA fingerprinting works in agriculture because it helps study and improve plants and the farm animals' resources. Just like yours and my own DNA, animals have their own unique DNA patterns, so testing animals and plants helps see which ones have the best genes for farming. For plants, it's helped to identify different varieties of rice, wheat, beans, seeds, etc. Can also help improve the breeding of plants by choosing the plants with the stronger traits. With animals, it helps also identify the better genes for breeding that produces better milk, meat, wood, wool, etc. Just the resources that we need as humans for our necessities. It can also help prevent genetic diseases that may be within of the genes of some farm animals. I think this helps farmers have healthier animals and crops to have better outcome for resources. What is the historical development of this practice? DNA fingerprinting was developed in 1984 by Alec Jeffreys for human identification. So it's not recent, but it wasn't discovered that long ago. Back when it was fresh, new practice, it was accurate but very slow and expensive, and it also needed a lot more DNA than it does now. While DNA testing nowadays, it's more expanded in different kinds of areas, like the options I said in those few slides before. But it's also less expensive and doesn't require a lot of DNA. They also made it so it's a lot faster to find results. Due to the development of the DNA fingerprinting, has been more researched about over these past few years. What historical and current examples exist? Well, there's the trial of the O.J. Simpson in 1995 that used DNA to help solve the case. It brought DNA more to the light to do more research. There was the first criminal case solved by using DNA in 1987, a murder case by a man named Colin Pitchfork. He was arrested for murdering two 15-year-old girls. Current events would be like solving cold cases from that were unsolved crime cases from like 10 years ago. But using DNA fingerprinting, it can help those unsolved cases finally be solved. Like saying if they found some evidence to support an unsolved case, or using those ancestry apps to find any lost family members and reconnect roots, basically learning about their heritage, seeing what ethnicities you can have within yourself. That goes to show how much DNA fingerprinting has come so far since it's first developed in 1984. What societal pressures were driven to the development of DNA fingerprinting? I would like to say the societal pressures were to identify criminals because it's kind of hard to put criminals in jail if they are on the run, but you can't follow any traces because there's no DNA fingerprinting. Also, the need for parental confirmation or people wanting to find out their own heritage. How does biotechnology play a role in my topic? Well, there's restriction enzymes. They can recognize DNA sequences and act like scissors for molecules. Like the DNA testing, if it sees a match between the two DNAs, it will cut it. DNA extraction, basically having a DNA sample like hair, skin cells, blood, and then getting those chemicals that they use for this to extract the DNA from those samples. Gel electrophoresis. It's a tool to separate DNA to make like a DNA barcode. DNA comparison. They use technology to compare the DNA samples to see if there's any similarities or none. Is there any ethical concerns related to DNA fingerprinting? I guess the most asked question would be if the government's going to use that DNA for other uses like experimenting or cloning or another crazy thing. Because I've known, I've heard or seen videos like that online or among my peers. Or some people don't like the whole DNA sample thing anyway because they say it's against privacy for companies to have DNA. Or some people have their DNA taken without their consent or understanding, so people say that there needs to be a form of consent on both parties. Any misunderstandings of DNA fingerprinting? I feel like, again, there is a lot of misunderstandings between some group of people thinking that they give companies their own DNA and they think those companies will sell their DNA or government will do wacky stuff with the DNA to control your mind and life. I think another misunderstanding would be that tests would be 100% accurate every time. In some cases, there's not that accuracy. How accessible is DNA fingerprinting to society? It's pretty accessible. It's a very common practice how you can go to a clinic and ask for a paternity test or get DNA swab tests online at a clinic and waiting for a couple of days to see yourself on your own. But things like seeing genetic conditions or anything medical, you'd have to go through the doctors to get a medical DNA test because they will have the proper tools and technology to see any genetic diseases. So I'd say the accessibility would be like a 5 out of 10 because it takes quite a bit sometimes for results, but they aren't hard to go get done. What is the media's public perception about DNA fingerprinting? Well, the good perception would be the use for criminal cases because it's highly accurate way to identify that when it has DNA involved. It brings justice and the truth out regarding cold cases or ones that have been wrongfully accused. It can help the truth come to light if there's any sort of DNA involved within that case. Some bad perceptions would be, again, companies having people's DNA stored somewhere. People don't like the fact that their DNA is stored somewhere in these companies' places being used for what exactly, or is the government going to use that to control me? Question would have been a commonly asked question among people who don't really know a lot about DNA fingerprinting. Describe how I feel on the effects moving forward into the future with DNA fingerprinting. I feel like it's a well-needed practice that should definitely be researched more on to see if there's any more accurate way to tell someone identify because it can stop a lot of criminals getting away with their horrible acts. I think DNA fingerprinting is a great practice and it helps those who are wronged by someone whose identity would be kept shut if there wasn't any DNA fingerprinting in the first place, or those family who have lost each other and needed a way to get back to one another. It's very heartwarming to me. I'm happy DNA tests can help people in a way where they can't help themselves. How does DNA fingerprinting relate to my own life? I don't think it relates to my own life that much. I just think it's a very interesting topic considering how much different places it can help people. So learning about it, it gave me more of a perspective on it. And it's not just mainly used within criminal investigations because that's what you would usually see the DNA fingerprinting in. But I guess it relates to me because watching documentaries about murder crimes or stuff like that is very intriguing to me, but I wouldn't say it's my whole personality. Why did I choose this topic? Well, I choose this topic because I think it's an interesting topic to research on because there's many ways you can use DNA fingerprinting and I wanted to learn about them. I knew about this topic a bit, but only in a way where you'd watch videos online or documentaries that use this practice to solve their crimes. But I would never known it could be used in different ways, like in agriculture. I would have never really thought about the uses of DNA fingerprinting with farm culture. What would I learn if I had more time? If I had more time to learn about my topic, I would have definitely learned about the different uses of DNA fingerprinting, like more ways it's used, like all the options I talked about before. It's very interesting learning about the different easy this practice can be used to help people, and I just want to be able to do that someday and help people. It's very heartwarming helping people with things they aren't really in their own knowledge. When I become a nurse when I'm older, I want to be able to help people in any way I can.